morning and welcome to another edition of 15 Minutes of Flame. I'm Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Austin, Texas. What's going on out there, everybody? Hey, back on the case as today's title for today's show. Says it in a very terse manner. Wow, what a Thanksgiving holiday. That's all I can say. Be careful out there. There is a nasty virus circulating around this country. And one of the main highlights or lowlights of the virus is intense stomach pain and continual vomiting. If you want to do a 3-day cleanse or a 4-day cleanse, a basically enforced fast, you'll have that opportunity if you don't take care of yourself. And even if you take care of yourself, it's always not a done deal, but it is a pretty wicked bug going around. And I got to deal with it firsthand with two people, not just one but two, and that's how I spent the majority of my Thanksgiving holiday, playing nurse. You know, it was what it was and is what it is, and here we are right now. Often the case with things in life where you think they're going to go a certain way, and sometimes they just don't. So we have to let go of our expectations of what things are supposed to look like and how they're supposed to unfold, and then we just deal with them accordingly because that's the way life is at times. And the faster and quicker we learn this, the easier life becomes, because we don't waste a lot of time lamenting over the fact that things don't go the way we'd like them to go, or they don't unfold the way that we think they should. It's a lot easier. It takes time for that. And time is something that, who knows? Who knows how much time we have? On a personal basis, on a collective basis, we don't know. It's always the great mystery. It's what they talk about. He will come like a thief in the night. Of course, that being a reference to the second coming and Revelation. And we don't know what the timestamp is on our own personal clocks. Although there are some astrological tools that will help you understand that and determine that, if you are so inclined to want to look into the fate of your future, the future of your fate. Anyway, that's sort of the intro, the riff for my philosophical rambling this morning. Be here now, be grateful for what you have, and do your best to move through things that are not always going in your direction. And course correct accordingly. It's just a lot easier that way. Okay, so here we are. We are now fully into the holiday season. And I'm going to say this now at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it again at the end of the show. I have holiday specials up on my website for readings. We're talking group readings. We're getting three readings at a very, very affordable price. That is half-hour sessions. And normally my half-hour sessions are $75. I think they're $75 or $80, and I get them for $40. So you can afford to get 3 and hand them out as gifts. They're great gifts, by the way. People love to get readings for Christmas. And then I also have discounted readings as well, just for the hour-long session. And oh, by the way, talked about this last night. For today and tomorrow, 48 hours. If you send me an email at rpm1122@zoho.com. I'm taking $50 off of my astrological course, and that's only for the next 48 hours. So hit me up if you want to do that. That's a 16-hour course. That's lectures and labs and PDFs and the whole 9 yards. And it's yours. It's yours to own. 16-hour course. Anyway. All right, so let's get on with the business of the day, which is breaking things down and digesting them and having the spiritual enzymatic, as it were. I know a lot of people aren't interested in sports that much, but they give us kind of a window into how we operate. And there was an event that took place yesterday, over the weekend, and particularly yesterday and last night. It's really fascinating for its, how do I say this, cultural impact. So college football is a bit different than pro football. How different is it? Well, it is, number one, more intensely regional than pro football is. I'm sure that if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan, it's very thick around Jerry World, and there's a lot of regionalism there. I would say that the chances of you being a Texan fan which is from Houston, is far less than being a Cowboy fan. So there's some regionalism in professional football. You'll find Jet fans or they'll bleed green. But what you'll also find is that these fan bases are also sort of transnational, meaning that there will be a lot of Cowboy fans in other parts of the country. They're not just located in Arlington, Fort Worth. However, with college football, they're intensely bioregional. So, for instance, if you're a fan of the Tennessee Volunteers, there's a really good chance that the most intensely connected fan base is going to be in Tennessee. You're not going to find a lot of Tennessee Volunteer fans in Portland, Oregon. It doesn't play that way with college football. So this is the main difference between the two, is a rabid bioregionalism. Well, the SEC, which is the conference that Tennessee is in, takes its football very, very seriously. It is always considered to be the powerhouse conference of college football. All the best athletes come from the South, and they have a desire to play in a way that other athletes from other parts of the country just don't. They're football hungry, football crazy. It's their life. Many of them come from fairly impoverished circumstances. So this is their way to get better, to increase their lot in life. It's a very distinct kind of American experience, and the fans, in many cases, don't have professional football teams in those towns, which is another reason why the bioregionalism is so fervent. Well, Tennessee is one of these colleges which is supposed to compete with colleges like Alabama and Arkansas and Auburn and all these other powerhouses, and they fired their coach, which is not uncommon. It's not uncommon to fire a coach if a team is not winning 9 to 10 games every year, competing for a national championship and going to a bowl game. If you have 2 losing seasons in a row, or you have 1 really bad losing season, you can be out on your keister in college football, particularly the SEC. So this is what happened to their coach, a guy by the name of Butch Jones. They fired him. That's not unexpected. But what was unexpected was what happened after that. The University of Tennessee decided that they were going to hire Greg Schiano. Greg Schiano is, first of all, astrologically, he's a Gemini. I thought I'd throw that in there. He's a Gemini, and Greg Schiano has a bit of an unusual past. He started his coaching career at a high level at Rutgers University and turned what was nominally a commuter school, which was not a very good football team, and an independent football team at that. Meaning, I played without a conference. And he turned Rutgers into a powerhouse. He turned them into a nationally ranked team, a top 20 team. And his success at Rutgers led Rutgers to be included into the Big Ten or the Big 12, whatever they call it now, where Michigan, Ohio, and all those sort of power teams play. So from a revenue standpoint, that was a great day for the University of Rutgers, because now they get to go out and they get to play these big-time schools. And when they do, they make a lot of money because those schools have a lot of people in attendance at their schools on the road. So when they play a road game in Pennsylvania at Penn State, and Penn State has 70,000 people, and they're on TV, well, that's a nice little cut and a chunk of change for Rutgers University. So Schiano was the guy that kind of got him there. Now, he piggybacked that into a stint with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he became the head coach. And this is where things get a bit weird for him, because when he was at Tampa Bay, and it wasn't just Schiano, by the way, this happened post-Schiano, Tampa Bay, at their facilities, had a lingering problem of people getting treated and then getting these staph infections at their facilities. So it was kind of like you were going in there, and if you there was, let's say for instance you got a cut or nicked up, or even just being in the vicinity of whatever it was that was in the locker room or in the trainers' facilities, you could get really sick. And there were guys that would have these staph infections that would last 3 to 4 weeks. They were treated with antibiotics, and they were very viral, right? They were super intense. So Schiano was the coach at Tampa through this very strange kind of like period where players were out for 3 or 4 weeks. He had a very tumultuous relationship with the quarterback there. He told his players to do things that were against the NFL code, like when a team when the team is winning a game and there's hardly any time left, what do? They take a kneel down and they burn the clock, and usually the other players just let him do that. Well, he said go after the quarterback. So a controversial figure in Tampa Bay. He only lasted about 3 seasons, maybe 2.5 at the most, and part of the Tampa Bay coaching carousel. And then he wound up in Ohio State, where he has been the defensive coordinator and has led the Ohio State defense to a pretty prominent position on a national scale. So it's like, here comes Greg Schiano again, looking like he could be a college coach and get back in the game as a head coach. So what does the University of Tennessee do? They look around and say, look, let's get this defensive coordinator from Ohio State. Yeah, Schiano. Yeah, he's got a little bit of baggage. Well, they didn't know how much baggage he had, apparently, or they thought it might have been worth the risk. So they hire Greg Schiano, and what happens? There is a huge, and I mean a huge, backlash from the fans, unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, they were in the streets protesting this guy's hiring. They're burning mattresses. And one of the things that they did is that they linked Greg Schiano to what happened at Penn State under Joe Paterno and the sex scandal with underage kids at Penn State. And they said that Schiano was connected to this. The fans were, and they were saying that he's an enabler. He's a child abuser. Now, I have followed the Sandusky case intensely when it first broke. Like, I was on the Sandusky case before other people were onto the Sandusky case in a big way. Okay, so you go back, you look at my website from 2010. And you'll see, what I was writing about at that time. Anyway, and when I was going through all the testimony, and I was going through the relationship to Second Mile, which is the kind of the booster club and the nonprofit, the foundation that Sandusky was a part of, and it was representing all these different boosters, and it was all supposed to be very above board, and Sandusky would go out and he would find kids to be a part of the Second Mile Foundation. These were kids that were foster kids, kids without dads. These were kids that were having a difficult time, from disadvantaged homes. These are kids that were in many cases emotionally troubled, which meant that they were vulnerable, right? This is what they were. They were vulnerable. They were looking for a male figure in their lives, oftentimes because they didn't have one, or the one that they did have was defective. And here comes big Jerry Sandusky. Hey, I'll be your big bro. And what he was doing is he was becoming he was a pimp, which is what he was. He was a pimp for the donors to the foundation. And Sandusky would ship them off to these guys who were quite wealthy. And they were industrialists and businessmen and even people in governments. Now, this was a big deal. This was a very, very big deal. There was a huge amount of, like, for instance, there was a lawyer involved in the Sandusky case who wound up dead. And his hard drive was missing. So there's a lot going on there. A lot. The president of Penn State had to resign. The dean of Penn State had to resign because he was one step removed from Second Mile. And to this day, I don't think they got to anywhere near the core of what happened at Penn State. Because if you go back far enough, what will you find? You'll find the same people that were involved in the Franklin scandal were involved in the Penn State scandal. And you'll see that there's a whole web of child trafficking and child abuse that has been going on for years and continues to go on. Now, through my investigation with that not at one time did I come across Greg Schiano's name. And it's only yesterday that people are saying that Greg Schiano was connected to this whole Penn State affair. And they did it in such a virulent fashion, connecting something that had never been proven. Now, I'm not saying that he wasn't, but clearly his name never came out in the trial. That doesn't mean, by the way, that he wasn't involved. But again, I dug pretty deeply on this thing, and I never saw Greg Schiano's name involved in this. So there are two things here. Number one, they didn't like the hire because he's from the North. He's from New Jersey. He's from Ohio State. They want somebody who is from the South, meaning that they know about the SEC, they know about the region, and to some degree, if you want to take this thing seriously, that makes some sense. That makes some sense. But they were so adamant and so absolutely inflamed over this hire and connecting it to what happened or theoretically happened with Schiano and the whole Penn State thing that Tennessee stopped the hire right in its tracks. There was a two-stage process for hiring Schiano, which was this letter that basically said, hey, we're into you, you're into us, let's take this to the next level. The next level would have been the signing of the contract. They never got to the official signing of the contract. Somebody leaked that we live in a leaky world now. So somebody leaked, and it came out that they were hiring Schiano, and people went bonkers. I mean, they were ready to burn down Knoxville, which is where the University of Tennessee is, I believe, located, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's Knoxville. Could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. That might be Tennessee State. But wherever, Nashville, Memphis, I think they were ready to burn some shit down. Let's put it that way. And let's just say, for instance, Schiano was not involved. That what they've done is they've used the public position to completely character assassinate a person and basically ruin their career. Now, he'll probably, maybe he'll be able to go back to Ohio State and still retain his defensive coordinator position. Although if you're Ohio State, do you really want that now? Do you want that negative publicity, especially now that your team is going to theoretically be a part of this discussion for the NC2A playoffs? They have a 14 playoff, and now you got this guy who has this albatross around his neck. If you're Ohio State, do you want that? Are you going to stand by him? Well, let's see what Ohio State does. So they're taking a filament of information, they're building an entire case, and he's being tried in the court of public opinion. And this is not uncommon now. This happens all the time. But what was really interesting besides that, which I thought in and of itself was pretty interesting, was the fact that these people got so fired up over a damn coach. Over a coach. In a football game. What would happen if they got that fired up about innocent people dying every day in a foreign war where our veterans come home in various states of complete and utter disrepair, dismemberment, disassociation? You know, where is the outrage for that? This is just a shitty football game for a college that takes the sport probably way too seriously. I applaud the passion. I applaud the fact that they got motivated, but come on now. I mean, what would happen if we turned that motivation in a direction where it actually meant something? And in moments like this, in cases like this, and we look at the National Football League, they're going to lose $500 million this year because the ratings are down. And I look at that, and while I've always loved football, and I enjoy watching it and commenting on it, whatever, it probably would not be a bad thing if, our bread and circuses went away. Because if our bread and circuses went away, maybe, just maybe, we might be able to turn our direction away from these distractions. And that happens, all of a sudden, we might be able to look at things with the same kind of gravitas, with the same kind of passion. This is what the so-called leadership is deathly afraid of, by the way. It's an interesting game. It's like a game of chicken with disassembling the National Football League. On the one hand, you get to take down something that's really American. It's an American institution. It's kind of like taking down a statue of Robert E. Lee in some ways, right? This is the takedown of the National Football League. So if you want to replace a paradigm, if you want to replace a system with a new system, what do you have to do? You have to eradicate the things that it was associated with the previous system. And we're going to see more and more and more of this. It's not going to go away. This disassembly and this deconstruction phase is not going to go away because we are headed astrologically towards Saturn and Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, and we're looking at 2023, 2024 as the launch date, right? This is the launch pad. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction in 2020 is huge. It's huge. This is where we get into the deep transformation of government and culture. And there's a death that takes place. And we haven't even come to the Pluto return of the United States when Pluto was at, was it 26 degrees? Is that what it is? Was it 26 degrees when, I have to look, I think it's 26 degrees, the Pluto return of the United States. Where Pluto was in the birth chart of the United States. Let me get in here. I need to be exact. Because if I'm not living up to my Virgoan status. So let's check this out. Let's see what we got here. Pluto's at 27 degrees. So we haven't even got to the Pluto return of the United States. So this disassembly and this deconstruction phase is going to continue. It's part of what's happening now. And Trump he's been the trumpet. He has been the trumpet of the Aeon in the major arcana of this country. Right? Sun Uranus conjunction, deconstruction. So on the one hand, if we deconstruct this thing, it's part of this identity of what America is and what America was. And I've been noticing that there's been this huge push now. It's been going on for a while for soccer, which is connected to the international identity in the international community. They want to bring a soccer team into Austin, and they're all getting hot and sweaty about having a professional soccer stadium downtown. So, okay, whatever. But on the other hand, it's one of those events that if they do disassemble the National Football League and this piece that's connected to the American identity, people might actually have more time on their hands and they actually might wake up. And all of a sudden, the projection that we have, which is some vicarious form of experiencing victory one day a week for 16 or 17 weeks out of the year, 18, 19 weeks out of the year, if your team winds up going into the Super Bowl and you're that attached to it, that goes away. That goes away. So that's almost, let's see, if you start with training camp, that's September, early September. That's when, I think that's when, or late August when they play the first games. And then the Super Bowl ends in February. That's half a year. That's half a year's worth of attention. And what if you take that away? What are people going to do with that? And the other thing with football is it has allowed us, and they've talked about this, they being the people that basically control most of the game on the planet, that these games have been set up so that our aggressions can be channeled through these games. So they don't have to be channeled through war all the time, right? Or they don't have to be redirected towards the people that are creating the games. So they believe that there is a psychological benefit to having sports like football, especially football because of the violence. It siphons off the violence from the people that are participating to the people that are vicariously participating. That's what it does. It doesn't create violence, it siphons it off. What happens when you take it away? This is the game of chicken that they're playing. Now, if they continue to ramp up things like 5G and the aerosol spraying from the sky and all the other crap, then we're looking at being herded into another gate or in another pen. Don't worry, once we take football away, we'll just move them over here. We'll affect the signals in their brains. We'll switch them off at a genetic level. We'll just continue to move them. We will be the shepherds. In a time where Saturn in Capricorn is right around the corner, what are we going to become aware of? Are we going to become aware of our goat-like status, being herded? Are we going to be aware of the shepherds themselves and the magic tunes they play on their little pan flutes that get us to dance like goats into whatever direction that they theoretically want us to? This is going to be an interesting time. We're going to have Sun-Saturn conjunction on the day of the galactic center. That's going to be a very interesting time, very sober time, by the way. And then, of course, on the winter solstice, Saturn will be in Capricorn. This has not happened for centuries. Long time. It's been a very long time since we had Saturn in Capricorn on the winter solstice. It is kind of a clarion call for those who follow these sorts of things in ways that they see themselves as being the gatekeepers or the Pied Pipers themselves. For the rest of us, it is a gateway to awakening. But remember, with Capricorn and Saturn, it starts off in a very constricted, contracted, and compressed fashion. It is only by understanding and knowing that we are in a cage or in a prison that we decide that we want to get out. And that is going to be part of this Saturn and Capricorn trip. I guarantee you. Can we theoretically take our power back during this time? I think there's a possibility of it for each and every one of us to figure out how to become the CEO or the person that's going to be engaged in running our lives. And it is not a sentimental affair. That's the nature of Capricorn. But getting back to this thing in Tennessee, I just find it amazing that these people had such passion, such Sturm und Drang for something as mundane as a college football game or a college football program. Let's see what would happen if they were really threatened at some level. God, these people must be laughing. The people that engineer our domain must just be howling hysterically. I guarantee you, Greg Schiano isn't laughing. He's not laughing at all. He was just doing his life, being a successful defensive coordinator at Ohio State, and doing what theoretically is the American dream, which was move up to the next level, go from an assistant to actually a manager, the supervisor, the director, whatever that position is. In this case, it was the head coach. And something from his past completely nailed him to the wall. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and especially if Schiano takes some kind of legal action, and particularly because it might have been leaked. His little, hey, let's get together and dance letter might have been leaked, in which case I would lawyer up if I were him. That's the American way too, don't you know? So fascinating, absolutely fascinating to witness and watch and just shake one's head with. Check it out, look it up, look at what happened in Tennessee in the last 48 hours. It'll blow your mind. And like I said, if people were that motivated with things that actually really mattered, holy shit, we'd have a different world. Well, those people would be in jail. They'd be in some kind of FEMA camp, right? I mean, because you can theoretically storm the gates with something as meaningless as a football coach. But let's say, for instance, you wanted to storm the gates around something as nefarious as, I don't know, geoengineering or forced vaccinations or whatever. And let's see what happens. Let's see what happens then as the dogs of capitalism are then unleashed upon those who wish to turn the tide and create a different reality. But that's what we're here to do. We're here to do that or surrender. Pick your model. And maybe it's a combination of both. Pick your battles. I think that's probably the best course of action. So what else is going on out there? Well, they're discussing net neutrality, of course. And we've had net neutrality, meaning that whatever you do on the internet is, let's say you have a cable provider like Comcast, like I do, I can use it for whatever I want. Although, here's what's interesting. This is what people don't understand. Like, net neutrality is there, but it's really not there. You know, so if I want to unplug from the internet, if I want to unplug from cable, which I did, and Comcast is my provider, which it is, because there's not many competitors. That's the other problem, is that there's hardly any competitors. There's Google here in Austin and some other minor league company. And you can do AT&T, but you have to get the dish, and you know I believe it's DSL. It's not even cable. Anyway, you can go those routes, but there just aren't 8 or 9 people competing for your services, which would be a much better marketplace. So what does Comcast do? They know that people want to get out of the game where they have to pay them $150 a month for all their services, all their bundled services. They know that people just want to get Netflix, or they know that people just want to get Amazon Prime, or whatever. I've got Sling TV, which is probably way overpriced, but I have it anyway because I didn't want to pay Comcast all the money I've been paying them. So what do? I cut the cord, but I still have to go through them for cable, for my internet. And you know how expensive that is? It's about $75, $80 a month if you want to get a decent speed. And I do professional stuff. I'm here doing this, and I need a good stream. I can't have a choppy stream. I can't have latency. So I have to pay for it. And then I have to go out if I want to. If I wanted to get out and get secondary programming, that's another $45. Now, guess what? I'm back in the same zone I was. So this whole net neutrality thing, in some ways, is real and it isn't real. Because Comcast, if you just want to use their pipeline, they will charge you a pretty penny for it. It's kind of like, okay, you want to cut the cable, you want to cut the cord, we're going to make you pay. So to some degree, they are modifying the whole notion of net neutrality by making it really expensive. Now, if you're a consumer and what you're here to do is you're here to save money, then you sit down and you say to yourself, well, geez, maybe I should just go back to, and I thought this, maybe I'll just go back to Comcast/Spectrum. Because I haven't been there in a year, which means that I can get their new package, which means I'll be able to save some money. And I'll get local TV again, and I'll try to figure out how to get these other channels, which I've sort of kludged together on the side. And I'll have my service back, and maybe I'll save $25 a month. And as a consumer, that $25 a month means something. Especially if you're cutting back in other areas. All of a sudden, you're saving $150 a month. Or $200 a month if you manage your expenses accordingly. And you can put that money away or pay bills off. I mean, this is how the game works, right? But they force you into that. They force you into their own version of what I would call a soft net neutrality. Well, with a hard net neutrality, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, guess what? We'll lower the bar for you to get in. They'll say, hey, we'll lower the prices, maybe. But then you get in, and then what they'll do is they'll throttle your content, which they kind of do at times already. And if you just want to use Netflix, they'll charge you for it. It'll be like a toll road on a highway. So this idea that using the providers as a neutral kind of agent so you can just have the internet experience, that would go away if net neutrality is dissolved. And that's kind of what they're pushing for right now. With Saturn and Capricorn coming, I don't know if it'll make it through. I mean, this is where we're going to see the intense flexing of the muscle of the corporate state. It's coming. It is coming with Saturn and Capricorn. It's the same thing with government. You know, when Pluto went into Capricorn, we had the rise of the corporocratic state. And even if you were like kind of a medium-based astrologer and you're looking at those aspects, it wasn't hard to see where all this was going. When I first started the website, I did like a 9-part series called The Melting Economy, where I got into all of this. And we could clearly, and I've said, look, we're going to have this rise of government corporations coming together in ways that they haven't done before. And right out of the chute, we had it. We saw it. The United States bailed out GM. For a period of time, the United States was a partner, an economic partner of GM. We saw the failed enterprise of Solyndra in Silicon Valley, where the United States, basically, Obama invested in this solar company that was put into this old GM plant in Fremont, California. We used to drive by that quite a bit when my father would get off of work, and I'd be with him or something, and we'd drive by that plant. Anyway, that's what happened. So when we see Saturn in Capricorn coming, it's going to be kind of like Pluto in Capricorn 2.0. So the overreach, we're going to see the overreach, and it's going to be from the corporate level, and it's going to be from the governmental level. At least that's where it'll start. You know, where it ends up 3 years from now after this Saturn cycle remains to be seen. Hopefully people understand that they're living basically in a Saturn cube. Speaking of Saturn cubes, there's a lot of high strange happening with Las Vegas. People keep sending me things. More people are dying. People that are questioning the narrative. People that are trying to come forward as witnesses. They're dying. They're getting killed. This whole Las Vegas thing is completely bizarre. It is a 9/11 styled event. And good luck, pulling it apart. It looks like that it was a full-on Mossad, ISIS, CIA operation. Stephen Paddock, who knows of Stephen Paddock? Is he dead? Is he alive? I talked with a client yesterday who spent time in Vegas and at the Atlantis Casino, and he actually knew or recognized Mary Lou Danley. She was a dealer. And so we know she's real because he reported it. He said, that she was very nice, and she was a dealer, and he even believes that he saw Stephen Paddock there at a table one time. And he seems like a really lucid and very smart, bright young guy. So what am I to do to doubt his word, right? But did Stephen Paddock actually die? Was that Stephen Paddock in that room? And even if it was, he's 67 years old. And I was listening to Jeff Rense and Jay Widener last night. And Jay made the point that this guy hauled up 300 pounds, 300 to 400 pounds of weapons into that room. And he's 67 years old. Like, could he do that? Would he have any interest in doing that? Oh, who knows? Maybe Jesus Campos helped him. I don't know. I mean, it's quite possible that maybe he didn't do it alone. But this whole Las Vegas thing is complete high strange. And then the next thing you know, where are we? We're in Sutherland Springs, Texas, where they've now demolished the church, and there's more high strange. The whole thing is just completely bizarre, completely and utterly bizarre. And what are we seeing? As a result of this, well, we're seeing scanners now. They've got scanners at certain churches now. They will have scanners in most of the casinos, if not all of them. And the plan is to have a Rapiscan nation where you get scanned. I mean, there are some schools already in the inner cities where you go through a scanner. That's not uncommon. It's not like it's anything new. You've got to go through scanners at NFL games now. You've always had to go through scanners in government buildings. TSA is going to ramp up what's happening at airports, and I guarantee you the next level of TSA will be facial recognition and biometrics. That's coming. Why? Because the technological infrastructure is there, and it's a business model. And so your tax dollars will go towards these municipalities, which are these airports. Airports are theoretically run by the city or by the state or by the county, and it's your tax dollars that support these airports. It's your tax dollars that are investing in these so-called security measures. I wonder what would happen if we turned airports into private enterprises. I wonder how they would manage to be profitable at that point. It would be very interesting. Very interesting. So here we are. We're looking at the next phase, these next couple of weeks before we move into Christmas. And again, we'll be dealing with very Saturnian energy, extremely Saturnian energy with that Sun-Saturn conjunction on the galactic center, and of course Saturn going into Capricorn on the night of the winter solstice. Sobriety is the key. I talked about this last night on the live stream, which you can see over on YouTube. I'll post it up onto the website today. And we got the Sun-Neptune square, which is a call for clarity, sobriety, and to some degree even austerity. Although that's more of a Saturnian kind of. By the way, if that's the case, and we've got Saturn coming in, I would say that the last-minute shopping is going to be a complete fizzle and dud this year. That people are going to spend way less. And in fact, this Black Friday was quite interesting, because it was an exercise in extremes. There were some Black Friday events which were, of course, pure theater. Just crazy, crazy Jerry Springer kind of stuff. And then there were also Black Friday events where there was nobody showing up. I mean, lines were empty. Stores were not buzzing with the same kind of ferocity, the Neanderthal ferocity that marks Black Friday. So if that's the case, then I'm going to assume here that the figures on holiday spending are going to be really, really low, especially with Saturn coming up here and playing a role in the game. And I was talking with one of my clients a couple of weeks ago, and this is a guy who's really turned on and switched on to the economic game. And he said that basically the whole thing's just going to run ashore, that there's nothing left, that there's no gas in the tank, meaning that the Federal Reserve is going to hit the rocks here, right? Because we've come to the end of the fiat lending cycle. And I said, well, I think that these guys are greedy. They're multinationalists. They've got their hands in all these different products, and they can't stop skimming off the top. Right, it's the greed factor. So I said that we'll probably get through another Christmas cycle, because Christmas is a big skim for the multinationalists, and not even and companies like Apple. Apple is betting that you're going to go out and you're going to buy an iPhone for somebody for Christmas, or you're going to get a new iPhone for yourself, or you're going to get an Apple Watch. So it's not just the toy companies, Mattel having a Burka Barbie. How about that, Burka Barbie? Yeah, it's an interesting development. No, but it's people like Apple, it's people like Samsung, it is people like even Google, who has their own phone now, which they're pushing very, very hard. It's not just the Android system, which they've developed, but it's the unimpeded access to the cloud, which means Google gets to keep all your information. As much as you want to cram on your phone, Google will be happy to store it. Happy, happy, happy. And what they do with that information, God only knows. Anyway, this is why I thought that we probably won't be going through any downturn here over the holiday season. After the first of the year, boy. Yeah, because Saturn in Capricorn, we don't hear about much anymore? We don't hear a lot about layoffs. You know why? Because companies have moved their bases of operation overseas. So we don't hear about layoffs. But what we will hear about is we're going to hear about store closures. And that's going to be the big news going into 2018, is going to be the death of the retail space. That's Saturn in Capricorn. So get ready for that, because that is kind of the last bastion, the last outpost of how Americans can make their money. They can go into these stores and they become service operators or agents of commerce and the point of distribution, right? Point of sale. And when that goes away, for whatever reason, the metastasizing of a company like Amazon, when that happens, then we're witnessing the canary in the coal mine. And that's going to happen, and I think that'll be the big news for 2018 is the massive store closure, because they're going to be stores, and they're hoping, they're praying, they're rolling the dice that people will extend themselves on their third credit card so they can go out and have a good holiday season and forget all the nasty shit that's happening in their lives and in the world in general, and to supplicate. That's what they're hoping. And then maybe it buys them another 6 to 8 months, or maybe another year, so they can reorg and figure it out and try to extend themselves out to yet another holiday season with maybe a back to school thing, sort of propping them up every now and then. This is the consumer cycle, and I guarantee you with Saturn and Capricorn, we're going to see a major downturn in that. So it won't be layoffs, it'll be store closures. And then when that happens, you're going to have more people out of work and more people on public assistance. It'll be interesting to see what Trump does with his Promethean effort to bring jobs back to America. I'm not sure how well that's going, by the way. I'm not sure how. We're not getting a lot of pomp and circumstance around that, are we? All right, so here we go. Let's bring this into the station. A crisp 48 minutes today on 15 Minutes of Flame. I hope this has been worth your listening pleasure. Remember, you can go to my website and you can avail yourselves of my holiday specials. And remember, for the next 48 hours, if you want to get $50 off my 16-hour astrological course, you need to send me an email, rpm1122@zoho.com. That's rpm1122@zoho.com, and I'll be happy to work with you, set you up, and give you that nice juicy discount for your astrological course. And you can actually use it as a gift for somebody. You could use it for a gift and study together. That's what people do. They often study together with the course as well. And for all of you out there who have taken the course or have purchased it, and hope you're enjoying it and getting something out of it. Somebody said to me, Paula the other day sent me an email, and she said, one of the things that I do is I demystify astrology, which is kind of what I'm here to do. I talk about it a lot. We go over things again and again and again, so you can see them clearly as not just symbols, but also patterns and cycles that are recognizable. Just like we recognize when the geese are flying south in the sky. They have that V-shaped formation. We know that that's a symbol, right? And that's initiating a cycle. They're going south. Why? Because the weather's turning. The weather's changing. Astrology is the same thing. It's just a pattern of more complex symbols and cycles, and that's how we interpret them. And yes, I've become a bit more scientific with my interpretation here since I moved to Austin, Texas, because I'm now a Virgo rising. Oh, happy day. Happy, happy, joy, joy. I got to go back to California every 6 months, get my Leo rising on. It's kind of like the vampire that gets his fix. Let me go back to California so I may get my Leo rising on. And just in terms of your own life, these are really interesting times. Super interesting times. And they're very intense in some ways. We're playing at a high stakes game right now. We're talking about your soul. And it's very easy to be commodified and to give it up. Look around you. This goes into the whole thing with Christmas too, by the way, which is the commodification of a holiday that commemorates, theoretically, the birth of the life of Jesus, which doesn't take place in December, it takes place in September. And so what we have is this layering, of course, of the pagan return of the light, which is what the solstice is. It's the darkest night of the year, but the next day, guess what? We get a little more light. We get a little more light, a little more light, a little more light. And, next thing you know, we're in February, and the incremental increase of the light has occurred. So, these are times where there is some gravitas involved. Saturn and Capricorn will be serious because you get to think about the consequences of your ideas, your thoughts, your choices. You get to think about this whole notion of the soul. and what it's like. I mean, this is a big time for that. Because theoretically, we are coming, if we look at what's going on, I mean, let's just take the Schiano event. That's like a reckoning. Maybe that's Greg Schiano's reckoning. But of course, nobody who's accusing him of doing anything terrible, or any of the wrongdoing that he's being accused of course, nobody else has ever done anything remotely like that, scandalous, salacious, or hidden in their closet. Of course not. Everybody else is squeaky clean, which is clearly not the case. And I'm not trying to take Schiano off the hook if something happened to him. I'm just trying to give the other side of the story. These are powerful times. These are really powerful times. And so we look at things from this lens that's coming, which is a higher degree of gravitas. Because that's what Saturn and Capricorn is. It's just a higher degree of gravitas. So choices are important. They're really, really important. Who you choose to align with, what you choose to align with, what you put in your body. These are all really, really important things. And I talked about this last night on the show, on the live stream. Just in case you missed it, it's getting harder and harder, by the way, to kind of align ourselves with the organic signal, the analog signal of the universe, of God within. Right? It's getting harder because of the disturbance from the outside world, whether it's our cell phones or 4G, 5G coming at us, what's in our food, in the sky, walking around with all the aluminum in our bodies. It's just getting harder for us to have these kind of meditative moments where we're in a state of grace. It's getting harder to do that. So you have to take care. You have to be really clear about what it is that you're consuming, what it is you're putting in your body, what it is that you're listening to, what it is that you're buying into. And I always use the filter, and so even then it can be challenging because we have moments where we check out, where we do kind of unplug. And even when you think you're kind of on and you're awake and aware, there are going to be moments that are going to test you. It's happened to me. I think, oh, hey, look at me. I can look at these things. I can look at these events, and I can disassemble them, and I can reassemble them in a way that makes some kind of sense. And I'm always kind of filtering that. And there are times when I'm living in that life, and all of a sudden, bang, I'm blindsided and go, shit, how awake and aware was I? There's always deeper levels. That's the amazing thing about this. And so when we get into that, we get into humility. And it's like, wow, that's the ironic part, right? It's the paradox. There's a long way to go, and yet we're already there. I'll leave you with that. All right. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. We got some comments here. So let me check them out. Nice to have you back. Boy, how much of our lives are spent in misplaced desire, channeled into person. This is from good friend Steve. According to most mystic creations, all desire is misdirected from our innate desire to reconnect with our divine source. He's absolutely right. And that is from the original desire of the one to become manifest, to know itself. Yep, absolutely. In fact, Steve's going to be on the show on Friday, and he's got a whole lot to talk about. I was looking forward to that, and we'll have a nice, clear signal for Friday's show. I guarantee you that. So nice to see you back, Steve. I'll see you on Friday. I just wanted to, I don't often get the chats during the real time, so I wanted to respond to that. Okay, use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm glad to be back here today with you all. Have a great Monday in this Piscean moon. Be gentle on yourself. Don't be too indulgent.